I'm live. Oh, it's so exciting. Good. Okay, now I'm live. So now it's just us right now.
Excellent.
Hey there, it's Becky from the Beckisphere. Welcome to my first live video. I'm 5 minutes late because I don't know what I'm doing. So, okay, thanks for letting me know. Yes, I am live. Thanks for sharing, Google. Okay, so this is the first installment of the Climate Book Club, where we will be discussing different books that talk about climate change communication, climate solutions, all kinds of stuff relating to the climate crisis in general. And the first book that I chose for our club is called Don't Even Think About It: How Climate Change, or How Our Brains Are Wired to Ignore Climate Change by George Marshall. I actually got this as a suggestion by watching another YouTuber who does similar sort of content to me. His name is Simon Clark. Definitely go check him out. But he had a list of his top climate change related books that he would recommend, and this was one of them, and I was just super interested. And I think that it's appropriate for the first one because it talks about talking about climate change, which is exactly the point of this channel. So with that being said, we are reading the first 3 chapters, so we're going to talk about the first 3 chapters in this book. And if you hear noise in the background that sounds like a chain just kind of shaking, that's a dog. That's our dog Charity. If you hear meowing, then that's the cat Rue. And if you hear analysis, that is my mom Sandy, who will be in the off camera because she's strange, but there's her hand.
Hi.
Oh, thanks. Hi. Okay. She didn't necessarily want to be on camera, so had to, make her uncomfortable once. But she has also put her notes in the book. We're sharing a book because that's environmental.
Yes.
Yeah. At least until I move out, then I might ask you to get your own. But yeah, so she's here to help talk about the book with me, just so, I don't know, we have a dialogue going, because as of now, it's just the two of us. I think another dog wants to enter, or one leaves. Okay, one leaves. There we go. Okay, now it's just the cat and my mom and I. All right, so we have our thinking juice. Drink up.
Cheers.
Cheers. And we have our thinking chips. Very important. Okay, let's get going. All right. So for those of you who haven't bought the book, looked at the book yet, I'm going to start by reading the little back of it, just so if you haven't and you want to, and you're interested after seeing this, then I highly recommend to check it out and join us. I said we did the chapters 1 through 3. The chapters are very short. I'm dyslexic. I'm a very slow reader. We'll probably do more than just 3 chapters each time if we want to get through it before the end of the earth. Morbid but appropriate. And so we'll probably do more than 3 chapters for this next one. I probably should have thought that part through on how many chapters this next time, but it just matters, honestly, if anyone comes to this first one and has any opinion on that. So I was going to leave it up. One sec. I need to cough because there's a chip in my throat.
Okay, no more chips.
No more chips. So, yeah. Okay, so let me read the back of this. George Marshall's search for the answer brings him face to face with Nobel Prize-winning psychologists and Texas Tea Party activists, the world's leading climate scientists and those who denounce them, liberal environmentalists and conservative evangelicals. Surprisingly, the answers don't lie in the things that make us different, but rather in what we share: our evolutionary origins, our perceptions of threats, our cognitive blind spots, our love of storytelling, our fear of death, and our deepest instincts to defend our family and tribe. Once we understand what excites, threatens, and motivates us, we can rethink climate change, for it is not an impossible problem. Rather, we can halt it if we make it our common purpose and common ground. In the end, Don't Even Think About It is both about climate change and about the qualities that make us human and how we can deal with the greatest challenge we have ever faced. And George Marshall founded the Climate Outreach and Information Network and has worked for 25 years in the now 30 because this book's 5 years old. Years in the environmental movement, including senior positions for Greenpeace USA and the Rainforest Foundation. He's recognized as a European expert in climate change communications, is a lead advisor in the Welsh government, and accounts major nonprofit organizations, politicians, businesses, and trade unions among his many clients. Boom. So, and he has a website, climatedenial.org. So I haven't checked out that website. I kind of want to. I like how he was able to steal the climate denial URL, from people that maybe were climate denial. Like a non-climate denier took that URL. So good on him. Okay, enough of me just reading the back of the pad. Let's actually get into it. So the first chapter talks about questions that he has, and kind of the questions that first interest him to make this book. That's the impression I got anyways, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. So I posted one of them on my Instagram, which was just the top one, because I found that it was relevant because I just did a video on wildfires. So talking about flooding, drought, and severe storms, it makes sense. But also that, to be honest, even though it was the first one, that one actually was one that I found the most interesting, because the other ones I felt like I could kind of like, maybe I'd seen it more.
Could you repeat it? I didn't look at your Instagram.
No, okay. Yeah, good point. Okay, so why do climate victims of flooding, drought, and severe storms become less willing to talk about climate change or even accept that it is real?
Yeah.
So that one, I feel like living in California, that just seems like weird to me, because I feel like a lot of people do connect the wildfires and stuff to climate change here, but it could also just be the people I'm surrounded by. And so I really haven't experienced a lot of people who have survived climate disasters denying that they are climate disasters. Yeah. Have you seen any?
No, I think you'd have to. Later in the chapters, it talks about Oklahoma
being
a central spot for climate change events. And maybe you'd have to move to Oklahoma to experience that, because I didn't know that Oklahoma was a major spot for climate change events.
Right? That is something I was really surprised about too. And I think Oklahoma is one of the main Senate battle states for this presidential election for climate specifically. So that's something that's really interesting. But yeah, so that was one of the things that he said, that was on, let's see, what page was it?
I'm jumping ahead.
You're jumping ahead, but bottom line is that, yeah, I think maybe you go into some of the more conservative states and they wouldn't put those two together. But I would be curious to know, for example, our aunt and uncle and cousins who lived in Santa Rosa were the only people or only house in their whole neighborhood that survived the wildfires from Santa Rosa. Was that 2018? 2017.
Yeah.
So I would
down all of Coffee Park.
Yeah.
The whole subdivision. And
yeah. So they saw that front hand. So then the question becomes like, what did they think of that? And I don't know. I haven't asked them what they thought. Maybe I did for Thanksgiving, but I don't know.
Yeah, be a good talk about it conversation.
Yes, it's a good conversation. So if you know anyone who has experienced a major storm, extreme weather event that has been connected to the climate crisis, ask them whether or not they knew that there was a connection, and if they believe there's a connection, and if they understand what the connection is. I would be really interested to know what everybody else has seen. But that was just the first question that got him interested in this book, or in writing this book, is that victims of those things become less willing. And I believe that from a little further on, as you were alluding to, a lot of people didn't believe it in like Oklahoma and stuff, even though they have one of the worst experiences with climate change.
Yeah, maybe our fires are just so much more dramatic and drastic that we're just, and we've had them for several years running now, that we're just, bowled over by the climate crisis because of that. I mean, it's just so in our faces.
Right.
With the smoke and everything and the orange sunsets and
yeah.
Maybe it's not quite as extreme in Oklahoma. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, so I'm thinking like Oklahoma, admittedly, I've never been to Oklahoma. I would love to explore some of the more like Midwestern and Southern states and stuff more, because I haven't been to very many of them. But I'm wondering if it mostly has to do with flooding or drought. Those are the main things I could think of, because I think Oklahoma is more agricultural.
Well, there was a reference to a dust bowl effects to someplace. I thought, but I'm not sure.
Here, do you want the book?
No, go ahead.
You can take the book. I mean, yeah. So, but what's interesting is that it says here also that in Oklahoma they still reelected a known climate denier, even though those problems are happening. So that's really interesting. So yeah, again, from what I remember reading, and I'll go ahead and check it because we're the only ones here on this chat, so why not? That the key Senate states this year are Maine, Colorado, Arizona, Alabama, Kansas, Montana, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Iowa.
That's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But no Oklahoma.
Okay, so I was wrong on that. But these current races that we're experiencing, I mean, this book was from 2014, and the current races that we are experiencing for the 2020 electorate still has those exact same dichotomies between the candidates. You have a candidate who still is a climate change denier, and you have another one who actually champions for the need to do something. So it's kind of crazy that we've gone 6 years since this book was written, but it's still the exact same thing. Like, the fact that it's still a question is frustrating, of course. But I mean, that's why we're reading this book, so we understand a little more about why other people would be hesitant to believe it, even after potentially seeing it with their own eyes.
So this is talking about, I just was Googling it, and it's talking about worst recorded droughts in Oklahoma's history occurred during 2010. And so they're having droughts, but then they've also been having huge rains too, and floods. So
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So what other things from these chapters so far in that same topic do you recall finding interesting? Here, you take the book. Take it.
Well, I was just gonna, the thing that really jumped out to me was how people didn't focus on the environmental challenge so much and connecting it to climate change as they did to focusing on how they rebounded from it. And you can see
Yeah.
that in California too. Sonoma strong, Santa Cruz strong.
It helps that there's so many places start with an S.
Well, even some that aren't are still strong. But yeah, so many cities and stuff, they band together. So like on page 6, he talked about they really wanted to share with me, what they really want to share with me was the pride in their community, their capacity to overcome challenges, kindness, altruism, generosity from strangers.
Right. They focus more on the human element, which makes sense,
Yeah. Cohesion, resilience, all of that was what they focused on instead of, what is the root cause of this issue and what can we do about the root cause of this issue?
Right. Oh, and there was also that statistic that showed that there was less antisocial behavior and petty crime right after a natural disaster. Even though places are more vulnerable, there's still the sense of humanity kind of takes over.
Yeah.
Oh, Maddie's here. Oh my gosh. Maddie! Hey, I love you. Maddie! Thank you for joining me. Welcome. I'm talking with Mom about it. She didn't want to be on camera, but do you want to poke your head in? Okay, no, you just want to see.
I want to see.
Shout out to Sandy. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the book at all, but we're basically just talking about how people that have been through a natural disaster and extreme weather events that are connected to climate change still don't recognize the connection between those two. And usually people end up just thinking if you bring it up that you're exploiting the issue.
Yeah.
Which is another interesting point, like how we were talking about how after a mass shooting, it seems faux pas to bring up the gun control issue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just climate change that's experiencing this sort of dilemma, but I'm wondering how to get around that. Because I don't know.
Well, so it's like Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing away, and you need to give some time before you move on and appoint the next justice, sort of thing, right?
Right.
And so there's this time period where people are recovering from the loss.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that time period, what is that time period? I don't know.
Right. You have to, that's true. That's a good point, because I feel like it's different for everyone. You won't win. I feel like that's one thing is you have to kind of accept that you're not going to win everyone over when you change it from a short-term perspective to a long-term perspective, because some people are able to move beyond faster than others.
Yeah.
It's also like when someone passes away, it's like, how long does one person need to grieve?
Everybody's different.
Different, So, yeah.
You know what? Since you have Maddie here, and since she went to school in
Colorado, one of the battle states for the climate Senate race, or like the Senate race in regards to the climate change issue.
I was wondering if Maddie experienced any climate events while she was at school. And I don't know. I don't recall any huge fires, but I don't know.
No, but the version of that potentially would be snowstorms, maybe?
Wildfires. Colorado has lots of wildfires.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's on fire.
Oh.
Yeah, but up in northern Colorado, like between Wyoming and Colorado.
So not in the area where Maddie was.
I don't know, Maddie. There were a lot of random snowstorms in the summer. In the summer? Summer? Wait, summer? And there were wildfires recently that came up around the time. Snow in the... Hold on, you have to break that down for a Californian. Snow in the summer? That happens? How high of elevation are you guys? Maddie's like, yes. Laughing face. Around the time California was on fire, Colorado was too. Interesting. So why don't we hear Colorado being on fire as much? I feel like we just don't.
I don't know why.
I don't know either. But what's interesting is that I was actually watching a documentary talking about wildfires from the perspective of a Colorado fire. And one of the things that they said was that it was even more clear in Colorado, the fact that it was burning, that was a case of climate change, because unlike in California, where the forest management was also an issue, and drought was also known to be kind of part of the environment before climate change really impacted it, that wasn't true for Colorado. Colorado, because of all that snowpack, it doesn't usually have that dry of a summer to create wildfires.
Interesting.
Yeah. And recently, this last September. Yeah. So wait, is Colorado Springs north or south? I'll wait for you to type. Come on, Maddie, you should be fast at this. I shouldn't be picking on you. I love you, Maddie. Wait, there's a third person. Hold up. Lol, I think it's more south. Oh, okay. But it still experiences it too. Yeah.
Ask Maddie. Maddie, do people in Colorado associate the fires and the snow in the summer with climate change, or do they not?
How many Coloradans that you've talked to are actually from Colorado?
Okay, that's fair, but
most people do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, interesting. And Colorado Springs, I don't think was the most liberal area either, right? Almost all my friends there were born and raised. Oh, I stand corrected. I'm sorry. So most of them are born and raised Coloradans, and it's a very conservative area. But they recognize that climate change is the main driver. Well, that's interesting.
Is that the state where Hickenlooper is running for Senate?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because that's one of the battleground states. It's Colorado.
So, and is Hickenlooper would be a climate change supporter, not denier. Okay,
so she says, yeah, I would say our generation recognizes climate change.
Okay.
So that's also another thing, is just because she was in a college town, that probably helps for sure. But that's I mean, for one thing, that's reassuring to know that my generation's taking shit seriously, because I mean, I remember for when I was interning for KQED, I remember interviewing people that were literally standing in front of the line to go into the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and they were high schoolers from Monterey, and they didn't believe climate change existed. And I literally cried afterwards. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no, like, what are you supposed to say to that? And also, who else is here? There's a third person, but they're not showing themselves, so I'm confused. But thank you, third person, for being here. I appreciate you.
Respect their anonymity.
I'm sorry. Respect your anonymity. And respect your anonymity.
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 Take a drink. Let's move on to the book. What else do you got?
Maddie says, yeah, being in a college town definitely threw in a lot of people with opposing views. A lot more people with opposing views. That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm very interested to know what is the main driver that makes people believe it or not. Like, is it just not talked about enough? Because that's another thing, is that there's kind of this collective social norm of silence around the topic.
And that was mentioned in the book right there too.
Yeah. Because, like, you think of gun stuff, you know, you think of, like, abortion laws. We all know that's very vocal, you know.
It's the old adage of don't talk about politics or religion with your family and friends.
Yeah, but
too explosive.
With family, yeah, I would say with friends, people talk about it. But I think, like, you know, you still, like, I feel like people are more likely to know their friends' views on gun violence, or like gun laws and abortion, than they would on their views on climate change. You know, I feel like people really just don't talk about it because it's depressing, I guess, but isn't mass shooting depressing too? I don't know. Well, I'm going to go on to the second question. So the second question that was interesting that made them kind of start to write the book was why are people who say that climate change is too uncertain to believe more easily? Whoa, hold on. Dyslexic moment. Give me a sec. Why are people who say that climate change is too uncertain to believe more easily convinced of imminent dangers of terrorist attacks, asteroid strikes, or an alien invasion? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think that's why we're going to read the rest of the book.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's a hook. Weird how that works. Okay, actually, yeah, with that being said, let's go to the second chapter, because that was the first one with really like content. And that's, we'll deal with that lofty stuff some other day. Why disaster victims do not want to talk about climate change. So the first thing that was highlighted here is, as I explore later, the lack of certainty is invariably an excuse for silence rather than the cause of it. Wait, I need to reread that. The lack of uncertainty is invariably an excuse for silence rather than the cause of it.
So if people don't know, if they're uncertain, they're just not going to say anything. They're just not going to have an opinion on it. They're going to stay silent.
Oh, interesting. So it's like people are more okay being not knowing.
Well, and I think I personally think that the data is so hard to pull together that it takes an investigative reporter practically to pull it all together instead of a normal human. You know, you have to really dig into it to be certain 100%.
But I don't know why that, again, is different than gun violence or abortion rights. Abortion rights, especially, I mean, that's a scientific topic, you know? You have, I mean, it's science mixed with psychology or philosophy, you know? You have the determination of, like, can you say off the top of your head how far along the baby is when the heartbeat starts? Like, I don't know that stuff, you know? But I still have an opinion on that topic, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if,
so why are the facts stopping people in this?
Because maybe you've hit on something. There's philosophy here as well, and it's just not as well understood. And maybe that's what he's going to talk about in chapter 4, which I can't wait to get to.
Yes, chapter 4, just as a little hook for y'all people, is you never get to see the whole picture, how the Tea Party fails to notice the greatest threat to its values. We're getting political.
See, so I think there's some philosophy there, because I think there's some undermining principles and values.
Yeah, almost in a way, I would almost think that the Republican conservative value almost has more weight to supporting doing something about climate change, in my mind. Because we have the need for family protection, like, you know, family focused, the need for protecting agricultural industries and blue collar jobs.
Being a good steward of the environment,
yeah,
and of the planet is important.
Is that a conservative value? I don't know. And also just a national security issue, economics issue, like.
Yeah, the Pentagon has taken climate change very seriously.
Yeah.
And is shifting their bases to areas that don't flood.
Yeah.
And putting in.
The DOD is taking it seriously too.
So
like,
it is a national security issue.
Yeah, like, it's weird because it seems like the people that are actually going around and, like, you know, making the calls to some extent, they are taking it seriously at the ground level, but
yep,
like the experts in the fields are taking it seriously, but then like the the jack of all trades political people that don't necessarily have an extreme stronghold on one particular topic. They're the ones that can't seem to understand it, if that makes sense.
I think that makes sense. I'm looking forward to chapter 4.
Me too. I am too. Yeah. Okay, what was chapter 3? We'll deal with some lofty stuff another day. Wait, that was chapter 2. Okay. Oh, yeah, chapter 3. Speaking as a layman, why we think that extreme weather shows that we were right all along. So that first, the title confused me. Because I was like, wait. When extreme weather prove us right, like, who are you talking to in that title? I think that's the part that confused me. Boy, that one chip still got me. I must eat another one.
So what did we highlight in that chapter?
Stories and strong images. That's what you highlighted.
That's important because it's the stories that convince people about it.
So
and
that's
the images. All of our fire images have been huge.
Yeah. So that's actually really interesting because as someone who comes from a communications field, I get a lot of conflicting advice on whether to focus on facts or focus on emotional storytelling. Because you get, like, with the, like, honestly, even between, like, you and Dad, in the way of our, like, discussing how best to communicate these issues, I feel like you guys are split on that. You know, one of you is a lot more analytically driven, the other one's more emotionally driven in the way of, like, what you think would compel best.
That's right. I like a good graph.
You do like a good graph. It's true. Okay, maybe you guys are...
No, but that's true. I do think that there are different people with different sides of their brain that function differently. And unfortunately, that means you have to put out both pieces of information.
Right. Yeah.
Because Dad is more analytical and he does respond more to graphs and data.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I'm just bowled over by the number of fire stories that we have in California, people losing their homes and just how fast and hot the fires have been burning. The speeds that the fires move across the mountain ranges.
It gets me on when firefighters die.
Yeah.
You know, like, you have people that are literally just risking their lives to save property to some extent. To save lives, yes, but in many cases, people die just from trying to save property.
Yeah.
And new firefighters coming in, or firefighters even that have been around for a long time, you know, they're not used to seeing these mega fires that we're seeing nowadays, and it just completely throws them off, and it can really like they're not equipped for it. And then on top of that, you have fire seasons that seem to never end, and so people just legitimately don't get a break. Like, it's just it's one of those things that's supposed to be a seasonal career, and now it's just all year round.
Yeah.
And that's a really fast way to burn out, no pun intended.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, I don't know. Maddie, what do you think? Or the other 3 people here. There's 4 people. Wait, do I count as one? I think I count.
Yeah, I think you do too.
Okay, so there's 3 other people here. Oh my gosh, hi! I'm Becky from the Beckisphere, and we talk about the climate crisis here, and we're reading the book, Don't Even Think About It, by George Marshall, which talks about why it's difficult to talk about the issue of climate change, because my channel is about climate change and the solutions and communications aspects of it. And the voice that's coming from beyond the screen is my mom. We're talking about this book because we both read it together. You can see there's 2 different highlighting colors. Yeah, 2 different highlighting colors, 2 different highlighting styles too. I'll point out there's a little bit of quote or information in the margins, you know, good stuff. And we're going over the first 3 chapters and basically just talking about well, now I forgot at the moment what I was discussing before I realized that it says 4. Oh, now it says 3. I'm so sorry.
funny.
Well, that's rejection. Maddie, are you still here?
So anyways, let's keep going.
Okay.
Let's finish up chapter 3.
Yes, let's finish up chapter 3. When you said it was going to be a half an hour, it's already been 35 minutes.
Okay.
See how that goes? Okay. So chapter 3 again is why we think that extreme weather shows that we were right all along. And so the other things that are highlighted in this to help make it clear what this is talking about. Be counted on to be an extremely effective teacher and motivator. Wait, that doesn't tell me anything. Why did I highlight this? Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So this book, Maddie, yay, you're still here. I love you. You MVP. And Maddie got a new job. Yay, Maddie. Okay.
Yay, Maddie.
Yes. Badass friends. Okay. So basically it talks about how environmentalists assume and environmental communicators assume that when an extreme weather event occurs, thanks for the shout out. That when weather events occur, that it will jolt people into the realization that it's due to climate change. And we're kind of seeing that's not happening, which is really interesting. So why we think that extreme weather shows that we were right all along, that is referring to us as environmental folk. So it's really interesting to see that that's just not the case. Like Al Gore tried to kind of, make light of the situation by doing "it's global warming, stupid." Yeah. And that kind of backfired on him, by people just being like, wow, that's just very ignorant of you to say stupid. I mean, come on.
You know what that was? That was a pun on another phrase. That was, it's the economy, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was that Reagan?
Nope.
Who was that? Out on history.
It was a Bush.
It was a Bush? It was a Bush. Where's my Bush cap, by the way?
I don't know. Keep going.
Okay, sorry. The more think juice I get, the more I seem distracted. It's weird. Yeah, so as we talked about before, Oklahoma actually is one of the main locations in which extreme climate events seem to be occurring, which is something that I feel like is not talked about at all. And again, as we alluded to before, our kind of guess is that probably is because the extreme weather events are more subtle than like millions of acres burning or a hurricane coming in and just destroying everything. Drought and flooding, some of those other extreme weather events are a lot more subtle. And so it can be very difficult for people to see that, dear friends. I mean, flooding might be, depends on the flooding, but like it seems like that is a case in which it might be able to be a little more vague. And unfortunately, that seems to be the case in a lot of states that still elect people that don't believe in climate change. So I'm seeing possibly a parallel on that one. But
so it's interesting. The EPA actually has a webpage, which is what climate change means for Oklahoma. It says in the coming decades, Oklahoma will become warmer and both floods and droughts may be more severe. Most of Oklahoma did not become warmer during the last 50 to 100 years, but soils have become drier. Annual rainfall has increased, and more rain arrives in heavy downpours.
Mm-hmm.
And in this coming decades, summers are likely to be increasingly hot and dry, which would reduce the productivity of farms and ranches and change the landscape.
Yeah. So as a little scientific breakdown, the reason why these extreme events are connected to climate change is because climate change, and I talk about this in the wildfire video, But when climate change increases the overall, or when global warming occurs and it increases the overall temperature of the planet, then normal atmospheric and oceanic systems and circulations that were originally working just in a way that the biosphere that we currently know and recognize was being the way it was. Like the reason why we have drier California air versus like super wet areas in England, stuff like that. The reason why things are the way they are now and humanity was able to develop their civilizations in this environment is because atmospheric and oceanic circulations were just a certain way to push those hot and cold fluids from one part of the planet to the next. There's a whole system. It's kind of like your blood circulation, And when the planet heats up, then those circulation systems start to break down. And that is why we are seeing more extreme weather events, because the normal circulation systems that were pushing these weather events through, yes, there might have been drought before in California. Yes, there might have been like hurricanes before in Florida, but now we're experiencing climate cycles that are slowed, and so those systems don't pass through, they stay. And so that's why you get those dichotomies between, I really like the word dichotomy, you get the dichotomies between flooding and drought, because instead of them kind of wish-washing around, it's one and then the other kind of thing. It's very extreme, hence extreme weather. And it's not good for soil and plants to be able to handle, because it is so extreme. The only plants that can handle that are like succulents that can hold in water for long periods of time for moments of drought. Most plants are not equipped with that. They're usually more equipped with more temperate climate, like precision or whatever. And so it throws a lot of the environment off, and that harms things like agriculture as well as just soil management and housing ability. I'm dying. It's not COVID. Sorry, that's a bad pun for this time. We're safe. It's okay. But yeah, so that's why you get those events. It's because of global warming. And that's a whole nother video that I want to do that just talks about the difference between global warming and climate change, and why those two words are thrown around and they're usually used interchangeably. They're almost the same thing. They're not quite the same thing. Global warming causes climate change, if that makes sense.
So I have a pretty graphic that was in that thing from the EPA. And the red is where temperatures now are up to 3.5 degrees hotter. And you can see there's an area where there's more flooding and cooler temperatures. So like Becky was saying, it's different areas are experiencing different extremes. I like a good graphic.
Yes, a graphic is always necessary, and it's great to have a break from my face.
Okay, we should wrap.
Yeah, we should wrap it up, because, oh my gosh, Maddie and the mystery person have been here this whole time, and that has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming. Next week, we are going to talk about, well, actually, let me figure that out really quick. Maddie gives a bunch of cute emojis. I love you, Maddie. So let's go ahead and do, so does the, I know I should have figured this out before. It's okay. We're going to keep going. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the next 4 chapters. We'll do the next 4 chapters. Move it up by 1. If you haven't gotten this book already and you're here, please get the book. I'm sure there's some either audio or like tablet versions you can get as well. So you can follow along, because this was probably the least information dense of these chapters. So it would probably help if you were able to follow along. But if you want to just hear my voice and hear my analysis of it, then you're welcome to do it that way too. Your call. I'm not going to say no to someone who doesn't have the book. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for supporting this book club. I hope that you found this information interesting and engaging, and I hope that more of this relaxed style and discussion format helps to somewhat understand and engage with the topic a little better than me just like blurting information at you. So please, for Maddie and the Mystery Being, if you have any comments or questions about either the content or suggestions about the format of the content that we're presenting, then please let me know. But yeah, I'm guessing this is probably going to be about around the same amount of time each time. So yeah, 45 minutes so far. Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay. Thank you very much. Cheers. Have a great rest of your Thursday. And I will see you all with a new video on Monday. Bye. Oh, and